December 7th, 1941. Just minutes before sunrise, Pearl Harbor was calm. Still water, quiet decks, sailors waking up for what should have been an ordinary Sunday. Then at 7:55 a.m., the sky tore open. Japanese torpedo bombers roared over Battleship Row, releasing warheads that slashed through the water. One of the first ships hit was the USS West Virginia, a proud Colorado-class battleship anchored beside the USS Tennessee. The first torpedo slammed into her port side, then another, then another. 7 torpedoes hit in total. Inside the ship, chaos exploded instantly. Bulkheads ruptured. Compartments flooded within seconds. Lights flickered and died. Alarms screamed. Men were thrown off their feet in the dark. The West Virginia began sinking fast, settling into the mud of the harbor. During the panic, several sailors were trapped deep below deck as watertight doors sealed shut to prevent further flooding. It saved the ship, but doomed the men behind them. When the attack finally ended and the smoke drifted away, the Navy counted its dead. Many sailors aboard the West Virginia were listed as missing, presumed drowned. But what no one knew, not yet, was this. 3 men were still alive. 3 men were trapped in a dry air pocket inside a sunken battleship. They were Ronald Endicott, Clifford Olds, Buddy Costin. When the world believed the attack was over, their battle for survival had just begun. They had pitch darkness, sealed steel walls, no escape route, a small emergency ration kit, and the sound of seawater pressing against every door. They didn't know if anyone would ever find them, but they decided one thing: they would fight for every hour of life they could hold on to. And so began one of the most haunting survival stories in World War II, a story the Navy wouldn't speak openly about for years. The USS West Virginia sat silent on the harbor floor, a steel tomb from the outside, but deep inside her flooded belly, 3 men were still alive. Ronald Endicott, Clifford Olds, and Buddy Costin had found a dry storage compartment that had sealed itself just seconds before water swallowed the lower decks. The bulkhead held. The water stopped inches away. For the moment, they lived. The darkness. There was no light, not even a dim glow. Their world was absolute blackness. They felt their way along crates, pipes, and metal walls with trembling hands. Every move was guided by memory, touch, and instinct. The only sounds were water dripping metal, creaking under pressure, and their own breathing echoing in the dark. They found a few emergency rations, a small bag of biscuits, a flashlight with a dying battery, and a single emergency hammer, too small to break through battleship-grade armor. They also found something heartbreaking. The door to the next compartment was jammed from the outside. No matter how hard they pushed, kicked, or hammered, it wouldn't move. They were trapped. The calendar on the wall. With no sunlight, no clocks, and no way to know if rescue was coming, the 3 sailors made a decision. They would track each passing day. Using the emergency hammer, Clifford Olds began carving small marks onto the metal wall, 1 mark per day of survival. The first few were made with confidence, as long as they heard activity outside. Salvage crews walking the decks above. Hope flickered. They banged on the ceiling pipes. They tapped out patterns. They shouted until their voices cracked. But the noise of ongoing fires, explosions, salvage pumps and diving operations drowned them out. No one ever heard them. Still, they kept marking the days. The slow disappearance of hope. By the 5th day, the flashlight died. By the 8th day, food was nearly gone. By the 10th day, the air felt heavier, staler, harder to breathe. They rationed everything. They split biscuit crumbs into 3 parts. They limited speaking to save oxygen. They took turns sleeping, afraid the others wouldn't wake up. Buddy Costin tried to stay positive. They'll raise her soon. They have to. But the truth was cruel. The Navy had no idea anyone was alive inside. The ship was so damaged that full salvage operations would not take place for months. By day 12, oxygen levels dropped so low that they became dizzy just standing up. Their voices weakened. Their hammering faded. Day 16. The final mark. Their last act of survival was quiet and heartbreaking. On the wall, one of them, likely Olds, carved the final line. 16 days in total darkness, cut off from the world, waiting for a rescue that would never come. Somewhere between that 16th mark and the day divers finally returned to the ship. The compartment went silent. The 3 sailors who had fought harder than anyone knew had run out of time. May 1942, 6 months after Pearl Harbor. The sunken USS West Virginia had become a familiar silhouette on the harbor floor. Salvage divers worked slowly, sealing compartments, pumping out water, and preparing the massive battleship for refloat. No one expected surprises. The ship was a grave, but a quiet one, until the day they opened compartment A111. The smell hit first. When divers finally cut through the warped hatch, a terrible smell of stale air and death drifted out. At first, the salvage crew assumed they had found bodies from the day of the attack, common in the recovery process. But then the lead diver noticed something strange. These bodies were intact, dry, positioned near crates and surrounded by tools and ration tins. This wasn't drowning. This wasn't an explosion. This was something else. He called up to the salvage officer, "Sir, these men lived for a while." The calendar. On the far wall, carved into the steel bulkhead with a hammer, the diver spotted the marks. 16 lines, some sharp and strong, some faint and weak, the last one crooked, as if carved by someone barely able to lift their arm. The team froze. This was no ordinary compartment. This was a survival chamber. The Navy officer supervising whispered, "My God, they were alive down here." The evidence of their fight. As the compartment was fully illuminated, the crew uncovered the heartbreaking details of the trio's struggle. Biscuit tins split 3 ways, a rusted emergency hammer lying on the floor, fingernail scrapes around the sealed hatch. A flashlight with a dead battery ration, wrappers folded carefully to conserve trash space, and 3 bodies positioned close together, as if they had stayed side by side to the end. Their attempted signals were visible too. Dents on the ceiling pipes, hammer marks on the bulkhead, scuffed areas where they had tried to pry open the next doorway. They hadn't died on day 1, they hadn't died in an hour. They had fought for 16 long, silent days. The Navy's decision When the truth was relayed up the chain of command, a difficult decision was made. The story would not be publicized. Why? Because admitting that trapped survivors were never heard and never rescued would raise explosive questions during wartime. Instead, the 3 sailors were quietly added to the casualty lists of December 7th. Privately, however, officers and divers knew the truth. Ronald Endicott, Clifford Olds, Buddy Costin, 3 men who held on in the dark longer than anyone thought humanly possible. For years, the story stayed buried, sealed behind wartime secrecy and silent guilt. Official records listed all deaths on the USS West Virginia as casualties of December 7, 1941, with no mention of what divers found months later. But secrets have a way of surfacing. Rumors among the salvage crew. It began quietly. Divers and shipyard workers who helped refloat the West Virginia couldn't shake what they saw inside compartment A111, the calendar scratched into steel, the food rationed carefully, the tools arranged neatly, the final marks carved by hands that refused to quit. Whispers spread through the Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard. Some men lived down there. They survived the attack. 16 days. Can you imagine 16 days in the dark? The Navy tried to clamp down on the talk, but it was too late. The truth had left the compartment with the divers. The families feel something is wrong. When the families of Endicott, Olds, and Costin received official notices, something didn't feel right. Their sons' belongings were intact. No drowning damage was listed, and none of the injuries matched the chaos of the first attack. For years, the mothers and fathers wondered silently. Did their boys suffer? Did they fight? Did they die alone? No officer could answer, because no officer was allowed to. The ship returns to service. In 1944, after a massive salvage effort, the USS West Virginia rejoined the Pacific Fleet and fought at Leyte Gulf, Surigao Strait, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. The ship became a symbol of American resilience, rising from the mud to return to war. But deep inside her newly welded chambers, workers remembered exactly which bulkhead once held the 16 carved marks. Some said the compartment felt unnaturally silent, as if the ship itself remembered. The truth finally reaches the surface. After the war, historians began collecting oral accounts from Pearl Harbor divers. One, a retired shipyard worker, finally admitted, "Those boys didn't die on December 7th. They lived longer than anyone ever imagined." This confession triggered a re-examination of old salvage logs and diver interviews. The truth slowly took form. 3 sailors survived the attack. They lived, they waited, they marked 16 days, and then they were gone. The Navy acknowledges the story. By the 1960s, enough evidence had surfaced that the Navy quietly allowed the story to be published in Pearl Harbor retrospectives and historical documents. Today, their story is recognized as one of the most heartbreaking survival attempts of World War II, a reminder of the chaos and confusion of Pearl Harbor, proof of the endurance and courage of trapped sailors.